Okay, so now this is now the beginning of the video. So this is from Monday. Welcome to my 3 international students from period 5 who were absent today on Monday. And all I did was announce so far that the homework problem 1 is due on block day, and the practice quiz, which I guess I'll have to put online 7-1A, is due on Tuesday. Now let's review. Let's do the next GFA problem. Right at the end, well, on Friday, when we were doing yogurt day, do you remember doing this problem? I said, what's the standard deviation of a situation where we use the X scooper? And this is for today's Tuesday. Does everyone have a calculator? Let me just press pause. Okay, here we go. On Friday, we did one of the hard parts of yogurt day is to realize that even when you're subtracting, variances add. And so, did we actually get the answer? What was the answer to this according to your answer sheet?
Do you want to look at our answer sheet?
No, we did.
So this group over here, who has the answer sheet? Oh, you know what I think? I think you guys left your answer sheet behind, and I kept. Oh, you got it now?
You gave it to me as I left class.
Okay.
Good move.
Do you have your answer sheet? Yeah, you do.
2.964 cups.
Okay. Yeah, the hard part to remember there is that even when you're subtracting random variables, you add variances. And the other thing that was kind of challenging to learn on yogurt day was that when you use the yogurtizer machine, it's a little bit different. Like, for example, just write this down as an example, and then there'll be the next GFA problem will be similar to this. What if you wanted to find the expected value of 8x minus 4y plus 10? Expected values are always very straightforward. It'd just be 8 times 5. Do you remember that the mean of x on the GFA problems was 5? The mean of y was 2. Do you have written down what the standard deviation of x was for the GFA problems? It was 0.3. Oh. The standard deviation of y was 0.1 cups. 0.3 and 0.1. So those, we're going to keep using those for this. Here's a situation where 8x is not the same thing as x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus ... plus x8. We're not doing 8 random events, we're doing 1 random event. Have you ever wondered what kind of a real world situation would be comparable to using the yogurtizer machine?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay, here's the idea. Imagine that all 8 of you, after you graduate from Wheaton Academy, are given an opportunity to make a donation to the Wheaton Academy Alumni Fund. We're going to let capital X be a random variable that represents the amount of your donation. Capital X has a mean and a standard deviation. It might even be approximately normally distributed. Some people are going to give a lot of money. Some people are going to give 2 cents. They're going to give a small amount. Some people might give a negative amount of money. So I'm not making a donation. You give me some. I don't know really what's going to happen. But imagine that I then stroll in and say, I'm going to randomly select one of your donations and multiply it by 5. I'm going to take a randomly, might be Katie's donation. And whatever Katie's donation is, I say, I'm going to donate 5 times that amount. That's a real world example of what happens in yogurt day when we strolled out, we rolled out the yogurtizing machine. It's because there's a lot of real world situations where you take a random value, a randomly generated value, and then multiply it by a constant. So that's what's happening here. Suppose we took x, or we use the x scooper, which on average is 5, might be more, might be less, and we're going to multiply that by 8 magically. We're going to subtract 4 times the amount that's in the y scooper plus 10. So would you please calculate what you think the standard deviation of this is? Go ahead and try. It's not a GFA problem, just a practice GFA problem, but you can do it on that same stapled pair of papers.
I'm going to just realize this.
That's what we would do.
Yes, Dan, I understand that. 3.
Okay.
Times 8.
So if I were making a multiple choice test, well, let's take 8 times 3 squared out plus
Yeah, what's X and multiply?
X has a mean of 5, standard deviation of 0.3. Y has a mean of 2, standard deviation of 0.1.
You just add 10.
At the end.
I don't know.
What'd you get?
Hold up. I didn't add.
Oh, nope.
I got 3.92.
Got some variance.
I got 9.38.
Oh,
Did you remember to do square root? The one you.
Wait, no, hold on. Hold on.
So it's gotta be addition, so it's
I went
I
with,
got 3.29.
oh, I went with B.
So I've got 4 options up there, A, B, C, and D.
I said,
And those of you who are watching at home on camera, take a screenshot of that. Just pause the camera, take a screenshot of that. It's either A, B, C, or D. I'm going to put it back up here. All right, raise your hand if you think you know, or no, if you found a fellow group member who agrees with your answer,
sure that it's the same multiple.
then please raise your hand. Okay.
Totally good.
Now, I'll be honest with you, one thing that throws people off is that even though plus 10 does influence the expected value, it is completely ignored in the standard deviation. Because addition, if you add something to a value that's not, and we're just adding exactly 10 cups of yogurt. That's exactly 10 right down to the nearest molecule. Chobani, strawberry, molecules of yogurt. It's just exact. There's no variability in the plus 10.
That's crazy.
So we don't use the plus 10 on standard deviations. We have to add variances. So then right now in your mind, it's probably down. In fact, I'll even make this one a plus.
Oh,
So if you have to choose between C and D, because I mean, it's kind of
I think it's
elementary to realize we don't ever subtract variances. We always add variances. So we know it's coming. So now, which is it C or D? Raise your hand if you think C is the correct answer. Thank you. Put your hands down. Raise your hand if you think D is the correct answer. So some of you said C, some of you said D. Now, friends, what's going on is that addition has no effect on standard deviation, but multiplication does. Therefore, you multiply the standard deviation of x, which is 0.3, by 8. So now 8x has a bigger standard deviation because it's been yogurtized. It's been multiplied by a factor of 8. Then we square it. If it had been, instead of 8x, if we had had x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus dot 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 plus x8, then it would have been 8 times 0.3 squared. The squared would have not applied to the 8. But because of this yogurtizing situation, the squared, it's like first we calculate the new standard deviation. Standard deviation of 8x is 8 times 0.3. And then we square it to get the variance. Variance is add. So on the calculator, this is what you're doing. I don't want you to type in anything more into your calculator than parentheses, double left parentheses, 8 times 0.3 close parentheses squared, plus parentheses 4 times 0.1 close parentheses squared. That's the answer. If you thought that, oh yeah, we're just gonna do this, here's the alternate version, what it would look like on the calculator. Notice that's much less of a standard deviation. There's much less variability if you're just gonna take 8 separate scoops and then subtract off 4 y scoops. Because then you're gonna have the underfill, overfill, underfill, overfill, and it's gonna get much closer to 0 variability. But if you're just taking like 1 scoop of x and then multiplying it by 8, that overfill got multiplied by 8, or the underfill got multiplied by 8. I mean, do you feel how much bigger the variability would be when you use that yogurtizer machine? So there should be this sense of, oh, of course this standard deviation would be bigger than if it were x1 plus x2 all the way on up. Any questions on this one? Yes, Mark?
What does like the expected value have to do with standard deviation? Like where do you plug that in?
Okay, so I hear your question. The question is, for those of you at home or at Starbucks, if you're watching this at OneBucks on earbuds, the question is, where do we use the calculation of the mean, which is 5 for x, 2 for y, when we're calculating the standard deviation? The answer is we don't use it. This is not like one of those problems where you just have one random variable, and in order to find the standard deviation of that one random variable, you have to take the square root of the first particular value minus the mean. Here's where you would use it, multiplied by the probability that capital X equals lowercase x1, plus, and then keep on going. No. We're not finding the standard deviation of one random variable x. We already know the standard deviation of that one random variable x. It's given as 0.3. Someone did that calculation for us. What we're doing is now we're going to the next layer up, and we're now combining random variables. See that formula that you learned last week where you have to use the mean of a random variable to calculate the standard deviation of a random variable? That's just when you're dealing with one random variable. We're dealing with a combination of random variables. So we don't need the mean. Okay, so further questions? Okay, now it's time for the first GFA problem of the day. We're going to call it GFA problem 3. Here we go. Oh yeah, if you want the expected value of x1 yogurtized by a factor of 3, it's like a donation multiplied by 3. It's triple plus 18 plus 14. Okay, if we were just doing the expected value, it would be no big deal. We take 3 times 5 plus 5 minus 2 plus 18 times 2 plus 14. It'd be easy.
Easy money.
What's challenging is to find the standard deviation. So here is your GFA problem for today. What is the standard deviation of 3x1 plus x2 minus y1 plus 18y2 plus 14? You may begin. Variances add. So make sure everyone has with no calculator. Friends, you cannot go to your calculator until you first write out the plan on paper. It's got to be written out on your. Do you still have it? No, if you don't. I've got a backup. Those stapled papers. Do you have these?
That would be fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, because everyone has to write down the problem, not on the homework sheet, but this is what this document is for. Does anyone else need them? Else has? So write out your setup. At the very end of your process, go to the calculator.
Thank you. 1 second, Dan. I really appreciate everything you do. Dan, I just want to let you know I'm just in the middle of something. So I'm not as fast as. Okay, Dan, I'm done. Dan, you're wrong. Is your handwriting too bad? I can't read it. No, you're right.
You know what you get. Calculator.
Yeah, because I don't trust my computer skills. Did you get that, Dan?
C.
That's what we're going with.
Go. That's why. Right? Yeah.
Please do not press each other's buttons. Everyone has to press their own calculator buttons. Everyone has to have it on the calculator before the answer.
How many decimal places would you like?
4 decimals, please.
Of course.
Yeah, so this is part of the group activity that you can explain to her what's going on. Don't press the buttons for her.
I got
Talk to her.
So basically, so you see how this is 3x1. So when you're doing that, because it's 3x1, because it's like the least. So she has to figure out what it is.
We'll
Oh, and careful.
The tone of voice
You
is
did-
one
see,
that
she
does
did
not
a point
make
three.
people feel
She didn't put in-
so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But rather
No,
nurtured.
Dan already
Want-
showed me his
want-
work and it's
Want
beautiful.
everyone to feel nurtured, especially Ava.
Oh, no,
She
no.
was
This is 3x1. Can I show my calculator just like, so since it's that, then you add
It's fine if you sign.
Since
So I don't want to stress
you
you out or rush you.
3 and squared, right? So then it's 1x squared, so it's 0.3 squared, you add that. And then even though it says minus, you always add variances, so it's plus 0.1 squared, because that's y. And then the last one, it's 18y, so you do the parentheses thing again. And it's 18 times 0.1 squared.
You guys do some math and stuff.
Did you watch the video or?
Here we go.
Yeah.
Plug it in and see what I get.
I feel like watching the
You missed out
video
on
would be,
grants.
yeah.
Cinematography is
Oh,
good.
Lydia, whatever you think.
So
Val is smart.
basically,
No, I
what
appreciate it.
seriously, you always just want to add even if you're like that, like we got,
Yeah.
because it messes up.
Well, you guys got one.
So do you get it?
In
Most part, at least.
Yeah, so.
It's so hard to.
It's hard, I don't know how to explain it quickly.
Yeah, you should just watch the video and it'll make a lot of sense.
But like, that's kind of like the quick one, does that variances never subtract, they only add.
So do you get it well enough to sign, or should we try to explain?
You're finding this.
What?
So basically, we're just plugging in those, for X and Y, we're plugging in
Yeah.
those numbers
Mhm.
and using
Go,
the
because I
formula.
got 2.037.
Just for this, which, and then we're not adding the 14 because you don't add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put like on the sheet.
Oh, yeah, there's no that, because I did the 0.3 and 0.1 instead of 5 and 2. You did their expected value, we're not trying to find it.
Oh.
About the standard deviation.
Da-da.
Are we? What are we doing?
We're finding standard deviation.
So you plug in 0.3 and 0.1 for the X.
Yeah.
And Y
Okay.
value.
Yeah, so.
We
I'm
good?
not answering,
We're good.
that's
Yeah,
something I have
fine.
to decide as a group.
Yeah, just type it in.
Who would ever do that, right?
GFA.
GFA.
Oh, so he's gotta get a shirt.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Okay, so we have, yeah, this one was 3 times 0.1 squared, but, oh, the whole thing, 3 times 0.1 squared. Plus 0.1 squared, plus, oops, that's 0.3 squared. So this one is 0.3 squared, this is 0.3 squared. Now we go to plus 0.1 squared, plus 18 times 0.1 quantity squared. We ignore the plus 14. That was the setup. Came out to, what was it, 2 point something?
2.0372 cups.
2.0372 cups was the correct answer on that. Now, first time I was teaching AP Stance. I think this is my 11th year. Sometimes I lose track. But first year, we didn't have yogurt day. I was kind of confused about the Pythagorean theorem of statistics. So when I taught it, I was like making mistakes. And then the students, they didn't really understand it because I didn't really understand it. And it was a nightmare. Whereas here, we're just on the second day after yogurt day. Everyone got it correct.
Yay!
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you, Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm wondering if you'd be interested in trying another one. This time I'm
That's fine.
going to give you a 2-minute time limit. So
Oh, no.
first time, it was, I mean, the previous one you were kind of like going through what do we do, but now I think you're going to be in good shape. So here we go. This time, what is the standard deviation of
Back to the boys.
x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 plus
X5.
5x5
Whoa.
minus y1 minus y2 plus
Alright, we're gonna need more than 2 minutes.
14y3 plus 30.
So cool.
What is the standard deviation of that event that you used a yogurtizer twice?
Me neither.
3.
So let's give it a go. I'm gonna pause the camera, try your best. Oh. All right, so that's pretty good. 1402.
Fantastic.
For the benefit of people watching by video, I do want to put the answer up here. I think the best way to do this is to type in 4 times on your calculator, 4 times 0.3 squared, plus parentheses 5 times 0.3, then square that.
I have no idea. That's exactly what I did.
That's
Plus
why it's so
2
trusted.
times
That's why it's
0.1
perfect.
squared.
Confused.
Plus quantity 14 times 0.1 quantity squared. So that came out to who again?
2.14. I have 14204. Yeah.
I will say cups. Okay,
Cups
Now
of
we're going to
yogurt.
transition to some official problems.
Thank you.
And
Official.
there's,
Oh,
have you all
no.
gotten
I got
one
you.
of those handouts that has the AP sign up booklet?
Yeah.
Have you all gotten those? Is there anyone who has not, wait, did I have those out today? Okay. Because I have those somewhere around here, I just can't find them right now. If anyone doesn't have it, no, well, here, you know, how about if I take,
That we got
this is,
Dove,
thank
that
you.
was
Okay.
stupid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if you
Alright.
were an AP English.
So friends,
Oh.
let's take a look at a couple of actual pre-printed problems. This is gonna blow your mind, but wait, stop talking, eyes up front. This is a yogurt scooper that has on average 120 gallons of yogurt. It's not even 12 gallons. This is super gloppy, this is industrial yogurt functions and operations. 300 gallons of yogurt on average from the Y scooper with a standard deviation of 16 gallons. Can you imagine gloppiness of gallons of gloppiness spilling out
Go
over
swimming.
the container?
Yogurt.
Okay, now,
Too much yogurt.
I would like you to skip down to letter F and G. I want you to find the expected value of x1, x2 plus x3 plus x4 and the standard deviation of x1. Do the same thing, both expected value and standard deviation of 4x1. So do all four of these problems, write down what you think the answers are. You may begin. Four times 120. 480 gallons. Okay, so the expected values are the same on both. 480 gallons on both. What's challenging is the standard deviation. So find the standard deviation of both letter F and letter G.
I don't know why, I'm not gonna be very wrong.
Two different answers.
Do we put the same thing in?
Yeah.
You did times that.
I'm so bad at calculators.
It's okay. Watch me still get the wrong answer.
Did you get 24 and 40?
Yeah.
I mean, when you take the square root of something squared, I mean, 4 squared and 12 squared, that's just gonna be 4 times 12. Now, notice why this makes sense. Notice that when you yogurtize 1 scoop of yogurt by a factor of 4, you have a lot more variability than if you have a situation where there's overfill, underfill, underfill, overfill. When you're doing 4 separate random events, there's not as much variability. But when you take just one event, it might be overfill, now that overfill is being multiplied by 4. So that's why you can feel like it's not just memorizing formulas, you can say, oh yeah, I understand why there would be a lot more variability in 4x1 than in the other one. Now, true or false, I mean, it is, sometimes this works out when you're doing expected values, but it's got, if it's true, that means it's got to be always true. And this is not always the same event. You're going to get different standard deviations on letter F than you are on letter G. So the answer to that one is false. Now, let's swing back. And I'd like you to try letters A and B before you go today. Find both the expected value and the standard deviation of a situation where you yogurtize by a factor of 8. Here we yogurtize by a factor of 2, then subtract off exactly 100 gallons. So the setups were 0.8 times 300, and square root of 0.8 times 6, so it's basically 0.8 times 16. Down here, all you gotta do is take 2 times 120 minus 100 for the standard deviation. The 100 has no effect. The standard deviation of that is going to be the square root of 2 times 12, both of those squared. That's it, so 2 times 12 is 24. You ignore the minus 100. All of these are in units of gallons. The homework that's due tomorrow is practice quiz 7-1A. So we'll see you then. Have a good night.
Wait, do you want our GFA?
I'm gonna take your GFAs. Yes, because these are worth points.